Hello everyone, this is Indrajit Ganguly and today I am going to discuss the previous day topic, the non-cooperation movement, and today I am going to teach you the expansion of the non-cooperation movement. There was no doubt that non-cooperation movement was a broad-based movement and different groups of people joined the movement simultaneously in that movement. After the revolt of 1857, that movement became very popular and that movement has the intensity to challenge the British Empire. So, in my today's class, I will discuss you about the expansion of non-cooperation movement in cities and in countryside respectively. Okay, non-cooperation movement started with middle class participation in cities. As you all know that Gandhiji appealed to the masses boycott British institutions like schools, colleges, office, courts. So, after the appeal of Gandhiji, students left schools and colleges and lawyers gave up their practices. And the Indian politicians, they also left the Council of Elections. They boycotted the Council of Elections. But there is one exception, that Justice Party of Madras, they never boycotted the Council of Elections because they believe that they can challenge the government as a part of the government institutions. Okay, import of foreign goods disrupted. As you know that Gandhiji appealed to the common people to boycott foreign products, basically the British clothes. So, the foreign goods were boycotted, liquor shops picketed, and foreign clothes burnt in huge bonfires. There is a statistics that import of foreign goods disrupted. That during the year 1921 and 22, the value of foreign goods dropped from rupees 102 crore to 57 crore. This was the effect of the non-cooperation movement. So, whenever Gandhiji was appealed to the common people, boycott the foreign products. So, obviously, the common people listened to these massive messages and they boycotted the foreign products and British products. So, now people began discarding imported clothes and production of Indian textile mills went up. So, this was very good for Indian economy. Okay, but the problem is non-cooperation movement gradually slowed down in cities because khadi cloth was more expensive than the British clothes, and the mass produced mill cloth and the poor people of India, they could not afford the mill clothes and the Indian clothes. Okay, so and finally students and teachers, they were not happy with the national educations. They are not easily accept the national education because the middle class people, they have a fascination about the Western education and they have a fascination about the English education because they wanted to get government jobs, and the national education could not give them chance to get any sort of government jobs. So, in this way, non-cooperation movement gradually slowed down in cities. Okay, the non-cooperation movement also expanded in the countryside, basically in the village area. But remember, the non-cooperation movement generally became violent in nature in the village area. In your book, there are 3 case studies about the expansion of non-cooperation movement in different parts of India. First one is Awadh, second one is Andhra Pradesh, and third one is Assam. Remember students, these 3 provinces of India are very important for 5 marks question. So, please be very careful when you preparing notes about these 3 important case studies. Okay, first, that is Awadh. Okay, non-cooperation movement in countryside in Awadh led by the peasant leader of the region named Baba Ramchandra. In Awadh, the movement was against talukdars and moneylenders because They demanded exorbitant rents from the peasantry. So remember students, the non-cooperation movement in Awadh is not only anti-British movement but also it became a class struggle, because the peasantry organized movement against the Indian talukdars and moneylenders. Peasants, they refused to do begar, and they demanded reduction of revenue, abolition of begar, and social boycott of oppressive landlords. So you can understand that non-cooperation movement in countryside is not become anti-British in nature. It's gradually become anti-talukdars and anti-moneylenders. So Indian peasantry, they organized revolt against Indian moneylenders and talukdars. So non-cooperation movement diverted in its objective. Indian National Congress decided to tie up the peasant issues with the national issues. So therefore, young Congress leader Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, he visited the region of Awadh and he listened all the demands of the peasants, and by the initiative of Jawaharlal Nehru, Oath Kisan Sabha was established, and over 300 branches had been set up in villages around the region. Now the peasants movement developed in forms that the Congress leadership was unhappy with. As this movement spread, the houses of talukdars and merchants were attacked, bazaars were looted, and grain hoards were taken over. So gradually, when the movement was started with the anti-British and anti-moneylenders and talukdars, and then the movement became violent in nature. So it automatically, we can say that the movement generally transformed from a non-violent movement to the violent movement. Okay, in Andhra Pradesh, the movement was militant guerrilla movement, and that movement was led by the tribal people of Gudam Hills of Andhra Pradesh. These tribal people basically started the movement against the colonial rule, because the colonial rulers prevented the forest people entered into the forest areas and prevent them from collecting firewood, fuelwood, and their basic needs from the forest. Generally, the movement was led by the tribal leaders of Andhra Pradesh named Alluri Sitaram Raju, and it was believed that he claimed that he had a variety of special powers. He could make correct astrological predictions, and he could survive even British bullets. He was very much inspired by the Gandhian non-cooperation movement, and he persuaded tribal people to wear khadi and give up drinking liquor. But the problem is that Alluri Sitarama Raju was not the supporter of non-violent movement. Okay, he was a supporter of a violent movement. So in same, just like Awadh, the non-cooperation movement in Andhra Pradesh, it was also transformed into a violent movement in nature. Okay, next we are discussing about the third case study, that is the case study of Assam. By the Inland Immigration Act of 1859, the plantation workers of Assam were not permitted to leave tea gardens without permission. Okay, when the plantation workers heard the news of non-cooperation movement, and when they heard the message of Gandhiji, that is, he was all the Indian leaders were now look forward for the India's freedom, that is for Swaraj. The plantation workers are very influenced by this, because to them meaning of Swaraj was right to move freely in and out of the confined spaces in which they are enclosed, because their life was totally limited in the plantation gardens. So when they heard the news of non-cooperation movement, so they decided to leave the gardens and wanted to go for their homes. But the problem is, there was a steamer strike and there was a railway strike. So they could not reach the home, and all the owners of the plantations, they sent the police and they were arrested, and they once again come back in the plantation gardens. So the Assam people, they could not reach their places. The problem is, now I told you that generally the movement is become violent in nature. Gandhiji also felt that in some places of India, basically in the countryside, the movement was violent in nature. Finally, in February 1922, a peaceful demonstration became violent, and there was a clash between the villagers and the policemen at Chauri Chaura village in Gorakhpur districts of United Province. The villagers were very unhappy with the British police because the British police tortured and exploited the villagers at regular interval. But in that time, in February 1922, the police never did anything with the villagers. The villagers have anger against the British police. So they attacked the police station, they locked the door of the police station and set fire to the police station. And by this, 22 innocent policemen were murdered by this incident. And when hearing the news of the Chauri Chaura incident, Gandhiji was not expected these things. So by this, Gandhiji decided to call off the non-cooperation movement. So there was an end of the widespread broad-based movement in India. After that movement, Gandhiji was arrested by the British government. And when Gandhiji was arrested, now the Indian politics becomes stagnant in nature. The year after the non-cooperation movement was very dramatic. What will be the nature of the Indian politics after the non-cooperation movement? That will be discussed in my next classes. Thank you and have a nice day.